MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
You can once again drive on most roads in Bridger Canyon. Coming up, find out what's open and what firefighters are telling the public about the continuing efforts on the Bridger Foothills fire.
It's common to think about the loss of homes and other structures after a fire, but what about everything else? The land, fences. I'm Annie Johnson with more details coming up.
It is 6:30 on this Wednesday. Chelly and Matt Elwell with you here. Continued challenging and unhealthy air here in Southwest Montana.
I can feel it. I know that we've been talking about it all week. I can feel it right in my sinuses in the back of my throat.
Contact lenses are just so scratchy right now. Yeah.
My eyeballs are going to be. It's going to be rough for them here in the next few days. Unhealthy conditions for Bozeman, Butte, Dillon, West Yellowstone, seeing moderate and climbing very quickly. Looks like most areas holding into the 40s and 50s this morning, 27 degrees in West Yellowstone. Again, that smoky haze in place for the day today. Temperatures into the low to mid 80s for Bozeman, upper 70s in Butte, and that smoke is thick. We're going to break down the details of your forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:31 now. This morning, Bridger Canyon Road completely open to the public. It reopened at midnight. Firefighters are asking people to please drive carefully as fire personnel do remain in the area. Several trails and roads do remain closed. That includes South Fork Bracket Road, Truman Gulch Trail, Bostwick Canyon Trail, Middle Cottonwood, Bridger Ridge Trail, the Foothills Trail, the M Trail, and more. Now, despite red flag conditions, management team says the fire still showing little growth. Wind gusts did not cause problems that were expected. You can find a full list of trail and road closures by visiting our website. As we're learning more about the Bridger Foothills fire, we're also still learning more about the lasting devastation it's left behind. MTN's Annie Johnson met up with a Bridger Canyon landowner who has a long road of restoration ahead.
It's been almost 2 weeks since the fire blazed through Bridger Canyon, and even though it has passed through this area, residents will still be dealing with the effects for years to come.
I'm thinking it's going to be 10 years before it doesn't look the way it looks currently.
For several generations, Mike Papke's family has owned over 600 acres of land in Bridger Canyon.
This is my where I grew up, my mom and dad's place. This is kind of the stomping grounds of being a child and growing up in the country, I guess.
Mike's home was untouched by the fire, but much of the land he grew up on was scorched.
It's kind of a little bit surreal. You know, it almost feels like at parts there could be like PTSD.
In addition to the land, now Mike is left with possibly having to replace miles of fencing ruined by flames.
I believe the going rate's $3 to $5 a foot, and so when you start adding miles of fence to fix, that number gets really big.
And there's more concerns.
I'm not sure there's going to be any grass that comes back, so now we're looking at spreading some grass seed. We're going to be fighting the weeds forever. I guess there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of scenario planning, but we just don't know.
But one thing local landowners can be sure of is their community support.
We're trying to gather hay for producers that have lost hay, lost feed, and lost fencing supplies. So a lot of hay and things sometimes are covered by insurance, sometimes not, but fencing supplies are not. So we're just kind of trying to do a drive to get enough to get them back on their feet and get them through this winter.
Like I said earlier, the fire has passed through this area, but local landowners are still dealing with the effects and in need of support. Reporting in Bridger Canyon, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
That Heyday fundraiser, by the way, will be September 26th and 27th, and it's being held at Murdoch's Ranch and Home Supply. In other headlines, Montana Tech Chancellor Les Cook sent an email to students, staff, and faculty last Friday with an urgent message. Warning says positive cases of COVID-19 have been directly connected to students attending off-campus gatherings where face masks were not worn. He urges students to follow state-mandated rules to prevent the spread of the virus in order for in-person instruction this fall on the campus. John Amy is looking into this Montana Tech warning, and we will have more on this issue later today, online and on air. Well, in about 7 weeks, Montana will complete its first general election with all-mail ballots in most of the 56 counties. 2 Republican lawsuits are trying to block the all-mail balloting process, claiming, among other things, that it creates more potential for voter fraud and other problems. MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison, part 1 of a 2-part series, tells us how mail balloting will work and has worked in Montana, and why local election officials believe it's a reliable, secure system.
In an election where most of the ballots will be mailed to registered voters, it starts by making sure that the list of voters is accurate and up to date. And across Montana, county election officials do that by performing what they call list maintenance.
Some people are concerned that voters would get removed from the rolls unfairly, but of course we have to have a way to keep the list up to date because addresses change, people pass away.
Officials routinely check death records and change of address files to see if someone should be removed from the local list. And if you don't vote for an election or two, you could be changed to inactive status or even get removed from the rolls. In either case, you would not get a mailed ballot. The best way to check your registration status is to go online to the website myvoterpagemt.com or just call the county election office. If you're on the registered voter list on October 2nd and your county is one of the 46 doing all-mail ballots, a ballot will be mailed to you on October 9th. It's the same way that requested absentee ballots have been handled in Montana for years, which, by the way, are the same thing as mailed ballots.
We use the same database, the same election management system either way. The difference is just who gets an envelope prepared for them.
Also this year, if you register to vote anytime after October 2nd and up to October 26th, 8 days before the election, a ballot will be mailed to you in those 46 counties doing all mail. Which brings me to the next question. How can you return that ballot that's mailed to you? As it turns out, mail is not the only option. The return envelope postage is prepaid, so mailing it is the easiest way and without cost. But most counties doing all-mail ballots also are setting up drop boxes at various locations where you can personally deliver your ballot, both on election day and in some cases before, starting in October. Those boxes must be staffed by at least 2 county election people when they're in use. And if you register after October 26th, up to and including election day, you must get your ballot and submit it in person at the county election office. As you can see, it's a meticulous process with many steps along the way. Tomorrow, we'll tell you what happens when the ballots are received and counted. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Mike tells us also mail ballots must be received at the county election office by election day to be counted. Election officials are recommending ballots be mailed at least a week before election day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. Well, the Montana State Fund will be paying a $20 million dividend back to policyholders mid-November. Dividend, a result of better than expected returns on investment, fewer than expected accidents in Montana workplaces. 22,000 Montana employers will receive a payment that will represent about 15% return on premium. That's on average. This is the 22nd consecutive year the Board of Directors has declared a dividend, bringing the total return to policyholders to $306 million since 1999.
It tells us we're making progress in Montana in terms of reducing workplace accidents, and that when we see those positive results, that as a state fund, as the guaranteed market in Montana, we're very pleased to be able to return some of those dollars.
By the way, Hubbard says it's an unintentional benefit. State Fund is also happy they can provide money during the COVID when many businesses are struggling. Time for a quick break here on Montana This Morning. When we come back, in the past, governments have always handled elections, but now nonprofit groups are stepping up to pay for poll workers. How this COVID-19 year is turning the political order upside down, coming up. First, here's what's coming up at 7 o'clock on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, Hurricane Sally is hitting the Gulf Coast right now with historic amounts of rain that could trigger extreme, life-threatening flash flooding. We're in Florida and Alabama, where millions are facing the storm's wrath. Also, Breonna Taylor's family receives a $12 million civil suit settlement from the city of Louisville for her wrongful death at the hands of police. Hear why her mother feels it's still not enough. And country star Kelsey Ballerini will join us, nominated for Female Artist of the Year at tonight's ACM Awards. She talked to us about her new album and getting creative during the pandemic. All that coming up when we see you all at 7.